The Shark Deck.
Hidely ho, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Patton Oswalt talked to the graduating seniors at William & Mary and said, to the graduating class of 2023, I say 3 words, you poor bastards. He said, don't think of me as your commencement speaker. Think of me as your shift manager at the Walmart. Patton said if he was giving the same speech back in 2013, it would be the Walmart manager equivalent of a pep talk. Clean up the spill near the sporting goods, set up the Halloween display, easy, manageable tasks expected of any employee. But in 2023, a go-get-'em pep talk won't work anymore. The environment in 23 is like if a tornado had ripped the roof off the store while an 18-wheeler has overturned and set loose a truckload of rabid white nationalist possums in the gun department. This is some speech. Patton said, your concerns as you stumble out into the reality tomorrow are massive. Democracy is crumbling, truth is up for grabs, the planet's trying to kill us, and loneliness is driving everyone insane. Took a pause and said, let's hear it for the nihilists out there, huh? Patton said when he graduated, he basically breezed into a world full of trivia and silliness and fun. The new grads are about to enter a hellscape where you have to fight for every scrap of your humanity and dignity. At that point, he stopped to check his notes and he said in the margins, say something positive here. He says, I'm a comedian. I'll get out of this hole. Watch this. This will be amazing. He looks the grads in the eye and says, you do not have a choice but to be anything but extraordinary. It's been truly amazing to see how your generation has rebelled against every bad habit of mine and every generation that came before me. Everything we let calcify, you've kicked against and demolished. You've rejected that whole 24/7 no days off grind. You've rejected apathy. You've rejected ignoring your mental health because you've got to muscle through it no matter what. You've rejected alienation and cruelty. You've rejected not trying to include everyone. You've rejected not looking out for each other. And those are hard things to reject because accepting them sometimes makes life way easier. Great speech, huh? Patton had some advice for people with lesser GPAs. His was a 2.8. And he said, obviously, you should work hard and play hard. But you should also wander easy, all right? And by the way, in the spirit of my 2.8 GPA, the last 2 pages of my speech I finished an hour before I gave this. His final thoughts, be human in all of its bedlam and beauty and madness and mercy for as long as you can and in any way you can. It's time to live. Jay Leno looked back on his famous 1995 Hugh Grant interview. Wow, it doesn't feel that long ago, does it? Jay told the Hollywood Reporter, I called him up and I said, you still in for tomorrow? And he goes, yeah. And Hugh Grant goes, I effed up, but it's my fault. Leno asked the famous question, what the hell were you thinking? Chris Wallace interviewed Jay and was curious how he came up with that question. Jay said, just off the top of my head. He was great. Nowadays, you'd have 100 handlers. More Jay Leno news. Total press release, clickbait, and I clicked and I took the bait. But all right, Carnival Cruise Line has announced that Jay Leno will serve as the godfather to its new ship, Carnival Venezia. Yeah, okay. I'll play press release. The ship is the first to incorporate the Carnival Fun Italian style. Jay will perform a special comedy show exclusively for Carnival's event guests. Jay said, I'm truly honored to be named the godfather of Carnival Venezia. It was an offer I couldn't refuse. Carnival's focus on fun, combined with the Italian theming of the ship, is something that's truly unique. I'm also excited to have my very own cruise ship, although I think I'll need a bigger garage. They also used a picture of Jay that's 40 years old. He's got a little gray hair in the picture, but not that much, and he's a couple pounds lighter. John Oliver will not be picking up an 8th straight Emmy for Outstanding Talk Series at the Emmys, if we have the Emmys. Wow, that's shocking, but there's a reason. The Academy changed the categories around a little bit. Last week tonight, we'll be battling it out with SNL and a Black Lady sketch show in the Outstanding Scripted Variety Series. Deadline says now the race for late night shows is more open than it's been for years. You could consider Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel or Seth or The Daily Show. Seth Meyers said, I like that the answer to how does somebody beat John Oliver is you just move him to another category. Deadline spoke to a number of late night sources over the last few months. The general consensus is that The Late Show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Late Night, and The Daily Show will get nominations. Multiple people suggested that Jimmy Kimmel will now be the frontrunner to win. He's well-liked, and some highlight the fact that he's an LA guy, which could play well with voters, as well as Jimmy's kept his profile high with jobs like hosting the Oscars. Or voters have been known to give a nod to an exiting favorite. That happened with Conan, and Trevor Noah's final year is eligible here, so we'll see. Same note on James Corden. HBO lobbied to keep Last Week Tonight in the talk category, but because it's more scripted and Oliver doesn't regularly have guests, so they were kicked out. The Academy rules state a scripted variety series is defined as a variety program that is primarily scripted or loosely scripted improv. Scripted variety may occasionally feature unscripted elements, but the main intent of the series is scripted or performed entertainment. So that puts Last Week Tonight in the same category as Saturday Night Live, which did not have a good year. So we'll see. A Black Lady sketch show also expected to be nominated in that category. We'll see what happens come September if there's even an Emmys telecast. There is a writer's strike, you know. Hey, Dave Chappelle, back in the news. DC's mayor has announced plans for a major redevelopment designed to honor the district's historic Black Broadway and add affordable housing. It's a project at the northwest corner of 14th and U Streets Northwest. It will include a bunch of things, including a new comedy club backed by Dave Chappelle. So I'm recording this on Saturday afternoon, which I usually don't do, but I flipped my schedule around because it was so nice out Friday. And on Saturday, my kid's soccer game was canceled, and I was so sad because I've been a soccer dad now for, let me do some quick math, 18 years, most weekends. And this was the last game of the season, and it was canceled. So that's sad because some of the kids are graduating, and we're not going to see those kids anymore, and I'm not going to see the parents anymore. And these are people we've spent a lot of time with. It goes so fast. So as a soccer dad, let me tell you, you want to capture all these memories. Let me tell you about mypostglow.com. MyPostglow creates a personalized gift to recognize once-in-a-lifetime moments in your child's life. What they'll do is they'll produce a feature story about your high school athlete's accomplishments, right? So in my case, my daughter's soccer team. Custom storytelling, personalized layouts. Each creation can be printed on either an 11 by 14 or 16 by 20 piece of high-quality metal. Can you customize it? Yes. Can you check it out before it's actually printed? Yes. Can you put a custom message or quote in it? Yes. Do you need to frame it? No. It comes ready to display, and the metal itself acts as a sturdy backing. It gives support, protection, so don't worry about a frame. All right, what do you do here? You go to the website, you answer a few milestone-related questions, you schedule your free design consultation, then you're in a virtual session, you customize the article layout, you make any changes you want, any personalizations you want. Go on the website right now. There's a limited time offer of 10% off. You got to do that before the 4th of July, and check your watch. It's June 5th. Do it. Once you approve the layout, it usually takes less than 2 weeks. I'm on the website here, which is mypostglow.com, and I'm looking at the samples here. And these are like cool looking articles. You know, here's a baseball themed one. It looks like a magazine article, says big day at the plate. And you see the happy little leaguers playing baseball. There's another one, heroics lift team to victory. And there's a football player kicking a ball up in the air. I'm telling you, as a soccer dad, it goes by in a heartbeat. You want to capture these memories. mypostglow.com. Check out mypostglow.com. Again, 10% off before the 4th of July, mypostglow.com. Shannon hit me up on the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. Shannon wrote, John, you've noted that you don't think some shows are really stand-up, like John Mulaney's Baby J, and maybe you mentioned Bargatze's show. What's your criteria for including something as stand-up as opposed to one-man show? Would you say Mulaney's older stuff was stand-up? To me, it just seems like different flavors of stand-up. So I thought about that, and I gave Shannon an answer on the Facebook page, and I said I'd elaborate a little more on the podcast. So as I think about it, so first of all, look, everybody I'm going to talk about here is great. It's all comedy. It's all funny. Also, I want to point out I've never performed. I'm not a stand-up. I'm not a comedian. I'm not a performer. So definitely don't want to take away from anybody that we're going to talk about here. But to get to the question, I think as I think of stand-up comedy as I sit here in the basement in 2023, I tend to think of something that has a punchline at a pretty rapid pace. It's a bit of a dated reference, but the person who keeps coming to mind is Sam Kinison. Sam getting up there, telling jokes about being married and just slamming home a punchline every few seconds. A more modern version might be a Bill Burr. But, you know, there are different forms of stand-up comedy. I think of Bob Newhart doing those one-sided phone gags. Bob's Hall of Fame. I guess that's stand-up. So the term I coined on the Facebook group was stand-up. Kinison's doing stand-up. Burr is doing stand-up. Louis C.K. is doing stand-up. Then you get things that are a little more storytelling, like a lot of what Mike Birbiglia does. And I think Mulaney did that on his most recent special. It wasn't like set up, punch. It was more humorous storytelling. Seinfeld is a stand-up. Jerry just gets up there and shucks jokes. Jackie the Joke Man, nothing but jokes. Gilbert Gottfried was nothing but jokes. Hannah Gadsby, storyteller. And then we can get into the gray of all this. Dave Chappelle kind of weaves stories and then drops in a punchline to keep you engaged. So yeah, Shannon, you bring up a good point. It's one of those, I don't know, I know it when I see it. That's probably not helpful at all. Mulaney just felt more one-man show, more like what Hannah Gadsby is doing than, say, a Bill Burr thing. Hope that made some sense. Happy to discuss this with everybody. You can submit your comments on the Daily Comedy News podcast group. Speaking of Hannah, her little Picasso exhibit, it's getting savaged. in the press, especially by art critics. Jason Farago wrote in the New York Times, if you studied art history or another with humanities in the 90s or 2000s, or say if you're around the age of 45 like Anna Gatsby, you may remember the word problematic from your long ago seminar days. Back then, it was a voguish noun borrowed from French that described the unconscious structure of an ideology or text. Soon, though, like so many other efforts to think critically, the problematic got left behind in the century's great shift from reading to scrolling. These days, we encounter problematic exclusively as an adjective, an offhand judgment of moral disapproval from a speaker who can't be bothered by precision. At the Brooklyn Museum, you will find a few, parentheses, very few, paintings by Picasso, plus 2 little sculptures and a selection of works on paper, suffixed with tame quips by Gatsby on adjacent labels. Around and nearby are works of art made by women, almost all made after Picasso's death in 1973. Finally, in a vegetable, clips from Nanette play on a loop. There's little to see. There's no catalog to read. The ambitions here are at GIF level. The actual number of paintings by Picasso here is just 8. 7 were borrowed from the Picasso Museum in Paris, which has been supporting shows worldwide for the anniversary. There's a fixation, though, on genitals and bodily functions. Each sphincter, each phallus is called out with adolescent excitement, with adolescent vocabulary, too. What jokes there are, example, Meta, hardly know her. Museum really could have reined in this immaturity, though to their credit, they've at least fleshed out the show with some context on the cult of male genius or the rise of feminist art history in the 1970s. And I'll leave you on a downer from the Washington Post. A former Playboy centerfold model who says she was drugged and raped more than 5 decades ago by Bill Cosby has filed a lawsuit against Cosby under a new California law that temporarily lifts the statute of limitations on civil sexual assault cases. The suit was filed on Thursday. It's the first known use of the law in California against Bill Cosby, opening a new front in a years-long and multi-pronged legal battle against the 85-year-old. Victoria Valentino, 80 years old, told the Washington Post, "It's not about money, it's about accountability. Rape steals something from you that cannot be repaired or restored." You can follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. That is your comedy news for today. See you tomorrow.